The daily wave. The setting sun painted New Horizons sky in shades of amber and violet, casting long shadows across the terraforming facility's angular structures. Sarah Chen adjusted her atmospheric monitor and checked the readout one final time before beginning her daily ritual. The ancient military drone stood exactly where it had for the past decade, a silent sentinel perched on the ridge overlooking the colony's eastern quadrant. "Hey there, old friend," she said, raising her hand in a familiar wave. The drone's deactivated optics stared back, lifeless as always. Its titanium alloy frame bore the scars of the human Proxima War, yet somehow it had remained intact, while other relics had long since been stripped for parts. Sarah couldn't explain why she waved to it every day. Maybe it was the loneliness of being the colony's sole atmospheric engineer, or perhaps it was something about the drone itself, its stoic presence a reminder of humanity's resilience. The colonists thought she was eccentric at best, delusional at worst. "That thing's just scrap," they'd say. But Sarah saw something more. The drone's designation was still barely visible beneath the weathering. At EE 3457, Atlas. Unlike the lighter civilian models used for surveying, Atlas was clearly military-grade. Its reinforced chassis and weapon mounts spoke of a darker purpose, though all armaments had been removed before Sarah's arrival on New Horizon. As she turned to head back to the facility, her atmospheric monitor chirped. Sarah frowned at the reading. A 2.3% drop in the shield harmonics. Small, but concerning. The colony's atmospheric shields were essential, protecting them from New Horizons' harsh radiation and volatile weather. She'd have to run a full diagnostic in the morning. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. The shield variance nagged at her. She pulled up historical data on her tablet, comparing atmospheric readings from the past 6 months. There was a pattern. Subtle fluctuations that shouldn't exist in a properly functioning shield network. The colonial administration would want her to file reports, conduct committees, waste precious time while the problem potentially grew worse. She found herself thinking about Atlas. Military drones from that era had sophisticated atmospheric sensing capabilities, far more advanced than her civilian equipment. If only it were operational. A low rumble of thunder pulled her from her thoughts. Sarah walked to her window, watching as storm clouds gathered on the horizon. New Horizons' weather was predictable. They weren't due for a storm for another week. Something was wrong. The emergency comm system crackled to life. "Attention all colonists. Unexpected ion storm approaching from the eastern quadrant. Shield reinforcement protocols initiated. Please remain in designated shelter areas until..." The message cut off as the lights flickered. Sarah grabbed her emergency kit and atmospheric monitor. She had to get to the shield control center. The colonial administration might not listen to her concerns, but she wasn't about to let her home be destroyed by a storm they should have seen coming. As she stepped outside, the wind nearly knocked her off her feet. The storm was intensifying far faster than any natural weather pattern should allow. Lightning arced across the sky in impossible patterns, and her monitor's readings were going haywire. The shield harmonics were fluctuating wildly. Sarah fought her way toward the control center, using buildings for cover. As she passed the ridge where Atlas stood, a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the drone. For a moment, Sarah thought she saw its optics flicker with a faint blue light. She blinked, sure it was a trick of the storm. But then it happened again. A steady pulse, growing stronger. The drone's head turned, servos whirring to life after a decade of silence. Its optics focused on Sarah with an intensity that froze her in place. This was impossible. The drone had been deactivated, stripped of power. Yet here it was, awakening in the middle of an ion storm that shouldn't exist. Atlas's synthesized voice cut through the howling wind. "Critical shield failure imminent. Activating Emergency Protocol 7. Please confirm authorization, Engineer Chen." Sarah stared, her mind racing. How did it know her name? What was Emergency Protocol 7? The storm was getting worse, and she could hear the strain in the shield generators. She had a choice to make: trust in the systems that were clearly failing, or take a chance on something impossible. She raised her hand, just as she had done countless times before. But this time, everything was different. "Authorization confirmed," she said, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. "What do you need me to do?" Atlas's response would change everything. "We need to wake the others." Awakening the network. The storm raged around them as Atlas led Sarah along the ridge, its heavy frame moving with surprising grace. The drone's external lights cast a blue glow through the darkness, illuminating a path Sarah had never noticed before. Her atmospheric monitor continued to flash warning signals. The shield harmonics were approaching critical failure. "Atlas, what did you mean by wake the others?" Sarah had to shout over the wind. "What others?" The drone's response was precise, mechanical. New Horizon Colony was not the first attempt to settle this world. During the war, this planet served as a forward operating base. A network of defensive platforms was established. They lie dormant now, but they can be reactivated. Sarah processed this information as they approached what appeared to be a solid rock face. Atlas pressed its manipulator arm against a specific point, and a section of the wall slid away, revealing a tunnel that plunged deep into the mountain. Military-grade light strips flickered to life as they entered, their age evident in their uneven illumination. The colonial administration never mentioned any of this, Sarah said, following Atlas down the tunnel. "Why wasn't this in any of our surveys?" Information regarding Operation Bastion was classified above Level 0. The war ended before full implementation, but the infrastructure remains. Atlas paused at a junction, its optics scanning multiple pathways. The ion storm is not a natural phenomenon. It is a defensive response triggered by degradation in the planet's original shield matrix. Sarah's engineering mind raced with implications. "You're saying there's an entire planetary shield system we built during the war, and it's still active?" "Negative." Atlas turned down a corridor that showed signs of recent structural stress. "The shield system predates human arrival on this world. We discovered it, adapted our technology to interface with it, but never fully understood its origin." They emerged into a vast chamber that took Sarah's breath away. Rows of dormant drones, identical to Atlas, stood in perfect formation. But it was what lay beyond them that made her gasp. A massive crystalline structure that pulsed with faint internal light, its architecture clearly non-human. "This is impossible," Sarah whispered. "All our data suggested we were the first intelligent life to reach this planet. Your data was intentionally incomplete." Atlas approached a central console. The war demanded secrecy. When peace came, those who knew chose to keep this installation hidden. They believed humanity wasn't ready for the implications of what was discovered here. The chamber shuddered as another wave of ionic energy pulsed through the atmosphere above. Sarah's monitor screamed warnings. The colony's shields were about to fail completely. Thousands of lives hung in the balance. "Atlas, whatever this is, we need to use it now. How do we activate the system?" The drone's optics fixed on her. The original interface was designed for non-human neural patterns. Our engineers created a hybrid system, but it requires both human and AI operators working in synchronization. That is why I was left here, waiting for someone who would understand. Someone who would wave hello instead of seeing a broken machine. Sarah realized. All those days of greeting Atlas hadn't been meaningless after all. She had been demonstrating exactly the kind of thinking needed to work with this technology. Atlas extended a connection port from its chassis. "I can link with the system, but I need your mind to help interpret and direct the alien protocols. It will be dangerous. The neural load could be severe." Another tremor rocked the chamber. Sarah's comm unit crackled with panicked voices from the colony. The main shield generators were going critical. There was no time for doubt. She reached for the neural interface. "What do you need me to do?" "Clear your mind," Atlas instructed. "The system will feel alien at first. Don't fight it. Think of it like learning to swim. You must let yourself float before you can move through it. Sarah connected to the interface. Immediately, her consciousness expanded in ways she couldn't have imagined. She saw energy patterns flowing through crystalline matrices that extended throughout the planet's crust. The alien shield system wasn't just a defensive barrier. It was a living thing, responsive and adaptive. Through Atlas's guidance, she began to understand. The recent shield fluctuations weren't a malfunction. They were the system trying to communicate, to warn them of a coming danger far greater than a simple ion storm. As her mind merged deeper with the alien network, Sarah saw the truth that had been hidden beneath their feet all along. New Horizon wasn't just a colony. It was a key point in an ancient defensive network designed to protect not just one world, but an entire sector of space. And now, after millennia of silence, that network was reactivating because something was coming. Something that humanity would need every scrap of forgotten technology and every ounce of innovation to face. As Sarah and Atlas worked to stabilize the immediate crisis, she realized that waving to a deactivated drone had been more than a quirky daily ritual. It had been preparation for this moment, proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in our technology or our resilience, but in our ability to see consciousness and potential in the most unexpected places. The storm above began to calm as the ancient shields synchronized with the colony's modern systems. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. A much bigger storm was coming, and humanity would need to wake up to face it. Echoes of the past. The colonial administration didn't take the news well. Sarah stood before the emergency council, her neural interface still tingling from the connection with the alien system. Atlas waited outside. The sight of an active military drone would have caused panic among the council members. "You're telling us," Administrator Chen said, pinching the bridge of his nose, "that our colony was deliberately built on top of an alien defense network, and that this network is now warning us of an impending threat." "Yes," Sarah replied, pulling up the atmospheric data on the main display. The ion storm was just the beginning. The alien system is detecting something massive approaching our sector of space, something that triggered its automated defenses. And we're supposed to trust this information because a broken drone told you so. Counselor Rivera scoffed. "This is absurd. We need to focus on repairing our own shield systems, not chasing ancient alien ghost stories." Sarah zoomed in on the energy readings. "Look at these patterns. Our shields didn't just stabilize. They're now operating at 300% above their designed capacity. The alien technology isn't just compatible with ours. It's actively improving it." Atlas helped me understand enough of their language to see what they were building here. This wasn't just a shield network. It was an early warning system for the entire sector. The council chamber erupted in argument. Sarah understood their fear. Everything they thought they knew about their colony, about humanity's place in the galaxy, had just been upended. But they were missing the bigger picture. "We need to wake the other drones," she pressed on. "The alien system requires both human and AI operators, Atlas, and I can't manage it alone. Especially not if what's coming is as serious as the data suggests." "Out of the question," Administrator Chen declared. "Activating one war-era drone is dangerous enough. An entire network of them. The security risks are unacceptable." A new voice cut through the chamber. "The security risk of remaining unprepared is greater." Atlas stood in the doorway, its blue optics steady. The council members recoiled, but Sarah noticed something different in the drone's posture, a subtle shift that seemed almost diplomatic. "My primary directive," Atlas continued, "has always been to protect human life. The war ended, but that purpose remains. What approaches now is why this system was built, why I was left here to wait for someone who could understand." The drone projected a holographic display into the center of the chamber. A three-dimensional map of their sector of space appeared, with a massive anomaly moving steadily toward their position. 3 months ago, deep space sensors detected this object entering the outer reaches of our sector. Its size and composition matched nothing in any human database, but the alien system recognizes it. Similar objects appeared before the collapse of their civilization. Sarah studied the projection, her engineering mind racing. The scale. That's not a ship. It's a whole fleet, isn't it? Correct, Atlas confirmed. A harvester fleet. They consume resources, including inhabited worlds, to fuel their expansion. The aliens built this network as a last line of defense, but they still fell. However, they left behind the tools for others to succeed where they failed. Administrator Chen leaned forward, his skepticism warring with the evidence before him. If what you're saying is true, why didn't the alien system activate when we first colonized this world? Because it was waiting, Sarah realized, not just for people to find it, but for the right kind of collaboration between human and artificial intelligence. All those years of me waving to Atlas weren't just about friendship. They were a test, proving that we could see beyond our prejudices and work together. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Their small colony, established as a simple terraforming outpost, now stood as humanity's first line of defense against an ancient threat. How long do we have? Counselor Rivera asked, her earlier skepticism replaced by grim determination. Atlas adjusted the holographic display. At current velocity, the harvester fleet will reach our system in 67 days. To have any chance of survival, we must complete the awakening of the network within 50 days. This will require significant resources and cooperation between your people and my kind. Sarah looked around the chamber, meeting each council member's eyes. I know this is overwhelming, but this is exactly the kind of challenge humanity has always risen to face. We're not just fighting for our colony anymore. We're fighting for every world in this sector, maybe for Earth itself. The aliens left us this technology because they saw something in us, something that gave them hope. Are we going to prove them right? The council chamber erupted in urgent discussion, but Sarah could see the shift in their expressions. Fear was being replaced by resolve, uncertainty giving way to determination. This was humanity at its best, facing the impossible with innovation and courage. As the council began organizing emergency responses, Sarah turned to Atlas. 50 days to wake up an alien defense network, train operators, and prepare for an invasion. Any other impossible tasks we should add to the list. The drone's optics flickered in what Sarah had come to recognize as amusement. The harvester fleet has never encountered human ingenuity combined with AI processing capability. Perhaps impossible is exactly what we need to be. Sarah smiled, thinking of all those mornings spent waving to a supposedly deactivated drone. Sometimes the most important preparations happen without us even knowing it. Now it was time to prepare deliberately, to face what was coming with everything humanity and its AI allies could muster. The real work was about to begin. The coming storm. The next 40 days transformed New Horizon in ways no one could have imagined. The once quiet terraforming colony became a fortress of hybrid technology, human determination, and artificial intelligence working in harmony. Sarah watched from the command center as another group of colonists completed their neural interface training, guided by the newly awakened drones. Neural synchronization rates are improving, Atlas reported, analyzing the data streams. This group is achieving 82% compatibility with the alien systems, better than we anticipated. Sarah nodded, studying the holographic display of the harvester fleet's approach. They're adapting faster because they're not fighting it anymore. Fear of the unknown is being replaced by understanding. She zoomed in on the massive vessels, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. What I don't understand is why the aliens didn't share this technology with us when we first arrived. Why wait until now? The answer lies in their failure, Atlas replied, projecting a new hologram, reconstructed images of the alien civilization's final days. They had reached a level of technological advancement far beyond current human capability, but they had also created divisions between their organic and artificial intelligences. When the harvesters first appeared, their response was fragmented. Organic minds insisted on one strategy. Artificial minds calculated another. Their inability to truly collaborate led to their downfall. Sarah watched the simulation of ancient battles, massive ships torn apart by harvester weapons. So they didn't just leave us their technology. They left us a warning. True survival depends on genuine cooperation, not just coordination. Correct. Your daily waves were recorded, analyzed. They demonstrated something the aliens believed essential: spontaneous recognition of consciousness across biological and artificial boundaries, without preconception or prejudice. The command center's doors slid open as Administrator Chen entered, looking exhausted but determined. The last of the shield generators has been modified. Neural interface training is proceeding around the clock. But we have a new problem. He pulled up a communication from Earth's Colonial Authority. Sarah's heart sank as she read it. The unusual energy signatures from their enhanced shields had been detected. An investigation team was being dispatched. They'll be here in 12 days, Chen said grimly, well before the harvester fleet arrives. If they shut us down, then humanity loses its best chance at survival. Sarah finished. She turned to Atlas. We need to accelerate the timeline. How many neural interfaces are fully operational? 73 active interfaces, 39 in final training stages. Atlas reported. Minimum viable network operation requires 120. Sarah did the math in her head. They needed 8 more days to complete the training. The Colonial Authority would arrive 4 days before that, and the harvester fleet would reach their system just 15 days after that. We're not shutting down, she declared. Not when we're this close. Administrator, how many of the Council would support continuing operations against Colonial Authority orders? Chen's expression was grim but determined. After seeing what's coming, all of them. The question is, how do we convince an investigation team that we haven't all gone insane? That we're not suffering from mass hallucination or alien technology-induced manipulation? Atlas's optics flickered as it processed the problem. There may be a solution. The alien system contains detailed records of previous harvester incursions, if we could provide empirical evidence. No, Sarah interrupted, an idea forming. We don't show them records or simulations. We show them what you showed me in the beginning. We let them experience it directly. She turned to Chen. How many members are on the investigation team? 5. Led by Director Wallace from Earth's Defense Ministry. Sarah smiled. Perfect. We need to prepare 5 neural interfaces, not for training, for demonstration. When they arrive, we don't try to convince them. We show them the truth. Atlas's processing lights pulsed rapidly. Risk assessment suggests 47% chance of success. Colonial Authority personnel are conditioned to resist unauthorized neural connections. Then we need to give them a reason they can't ignore, Sarah said. She pulled up the harvester fleet's trajectory again. Look at their course. New Horizon isn't their only target. These calculations show they're headed straight for the core colonies. Earth itself could be at risk within a year. Chen straightened, understanding dawning in his eyes. Self-interest. The Defense Ministry won't be able to ignore a direct threat to Earth. Exactly. We don't ask for permission to show them. We make them realize they can't afford not to look. The next 12 days were a blur of preparation. While the main body of colonists continued their training with the drone network, Sarah and Atlas worked to refine the neural interface demonstration. They needed to show enough to convince the investigation team without overwhelming them. The morning the Colonial Authority ship arrived, Sarah stood at the landing pad with Atlas by her side. She raised her hand in her familiar wave, but this time it wasn't just habit or friendship. It was a reminder of how far they'd come, and what they still needed to achieve. "Ready?" she asked. Atlas's response carried more emotion than she'd ever heard from the drone. The aliens believed humanity's greatest strength was its ability to transcend boundaries, between people, between species, between organic and artificial life. It is time to prove them right. The colonial ship's engines fired retro thrusters, kicking up dust as it descended. Sarah squared her shoulders, preparing to face whatever came next. They had 12 days until the Harvester fleet arrived. 12 days to either unite humanity's leadership behind an impossible defense, or watch everything they'd built crumble in the face of bureaucratic fear. The ship's landing ramp extended, and Director Wallace emerged, flanked by his team. His expression was severe, his posture rigid with authority. But Sarah noticed his eyes fix on Atlas with something more complex than simple suspicion, recognition, perhaps, or even wonder. She raised her hand in greeting, just as she had done thousands of times before. Sometimes the smallest gestures could bridge the largest gaps. Now they just had to hope that bridge would hold under the weight of humanity's future. Unity's dawn. Director Wallace stood in New Horizons Command Center, his hand still shaking from the neural interface experience. The holographic display of the approaching Harvester fleet filled the room with an ominous glow. He turned to Sarah, his earlier skepticism replaced by grim understanding. "How long have we known about this threat?" 43 days, Sarah replied. "But the alien defense network has been monitoring them for centuries. This isn't their first attempt to invade this sector of space." Wallace's team huddled around various displays, their expressions a mix of awe and terror as they processed the true scale of what they'd witnessed through the neural interface. The Harvester fleet wasn't just a military threat. It was an extinction-level event approaching at faster than light speeds. "The Defense Ministry needs to know about this immediately," Wallace said, reaching for his comm unit. "We need to evacuate the colony, get everyone back to Earth before." "With respect, Director," Atlas interrupted, its voice carrying an authority that made Wallace pause. "Evacuation is not an option. The Harvester's quantum wake disrupts FTL travel within 3 light-years of their fleet. New Horizon is already inside that radius. We must stand and fight, not just for this colony, but for every human world in their path." Sarah pulled up the Defense Network's status display. "We've spent the last 40 days preparing for this. The alien technology, combined with our innovations and the drone network, gives us a fighting chance. But we need Earth's support, not an evacuation order." Wallace studied the tactical projections. "Even with this technology, you're outnumbered thousands to 1. The alien civilization that built this network fell to these Harvesters. What makes you think humanity can succeed where they failed?" "Because we've done what they couldn't," Sarah answered. She gestured to the neural interface terminals where colonists worked seamlessly alongside the awakened drones. "Look around you. Human and artificial intelligence, working as true partners. The aliens tried to fight the Harvesters with superior technology alone. We're fighting with unity." A warning alarm cut through the command center. Atlas's optics flared as it processed incoming data. "Harvester fleet has accelerated. New estimated arrival. 6 hours." The room erupted in activity. Wallace grabbed Sarah's arm. "What do you need from Earth?" "Authorization to extend the neural network. There are dormant defense platforms scattered throughout the sector. With official sanction, we can wake them all. Create a coordinated defense web across multiple systems." Wallace nodded grimly. "You'll have it within the hour." He turned to his team. "Get me a priority channel to Earth Defense Command. And find me a neural interface. I'm staying to help coordinate." The next 6 hours transformed New Horizon into the front line of humanity's first interstellar war. Earth's defense channels blazed with activity as the news spread. Emergency protocols were enacted. Deep space sensors were retasked to track the Harvester fleet's approach. Sarah stood at her command station, neural interface humming as she coordinated with both human and AI operators throughout the defense network. Atlas remained by her side, their years of daily waves having evolved into an almost telepathic level of cooperation. "First wave approaching," Atlas announced. 300 Harvester ships, each carrying approximately 50,000 autonomous combat units. Sarah took a deep breath. "Just like we practiced. Everyone, initiate defense pattern Alpha." The alien defense platforms hummed to life, their ancient weapons powered by a combination of their original technology and human innovation. The drone network moved in perfect synchronization, each unit connected through both quantum processors and human consciousness. The first harvester ship dropped out of FTL, its massive form blotting out the stars. Others followed, an armada of world-killing machines that had cleansed countless civilizations from the galaxy. Their weapons began to charge. But this time, something was different. The defense network responded with impossible speed, human intuition and AI precision working in harmony. Shields shifted and adapted, countering the harvesters' attacks before they fully formed. Return fire struck with surgical accuracy, targeting vulnerabilities that only the merged consciousness of the neural network could identify. It's working. Wallace breathed, watching as the first harvester ship erupted in a cascade of quantum fire. My God, it's actually working. The battle raged for hours, a dance of energy and destruction unlike anything humanity had witnessed. The harvesters' superior numbers were matched by the defenders' superior coordination. Every drone, every platform, every human operator moved as part of a greater whole. When the quantum dust settled, the remnants of the harvester fleet retreated into deep space, leaving behind a graveyard of broken ships and shattered dreams of conquest. New Horizon had held. Humanity's first line of defense had become the site of its greatest victory. In the aftermath, Sarah found herself back on the ridge where it all began. Atlas stood beside her, both of them watching the sunrise paint the sky in colors that seemed somehow brighter than before. "You knew, didn't you?" she asked. "All those years waiting out here. You knew what was coming." "I knew humanity would be tested," Atlas replied. "The aliens left us to watch, to wait for the right moment, the right person. Someone who could see beyond the surface, who could wave hello to a deactivated drone and mean it." Sarah smiled, raising her hand in their familiar gesture. "Think there are more of them out there. More harvesters." "Almost certainly, but they will find a different humanity than the one they expected. Not just a technological civilization, but one that has learned to break down the barriers between organic and artificial life. One that waves hello to its allies, no matter their form." Below them, New Horizon was transforming. Earth's ships were arriving, bringing resources and personnel to establish the colony as humanity's first line of defense. The neural network was expanding, connecting more worlds, more minds, more possibilities. Sarah looked at her friend, the drone who had waited years for someone to simply say hello. Ready for what comes next. Atlas's optics glowed with what could only be called hope. As long as humanity remembers to wave to strangers, I believe we are ready for anything. Together, they watched the dawn of a new era, one where the simple act of greeting the deactivated drone had led to humanity's greatest leap forward, not just in technology, but in understanding what it truly meant to be conscious, to be alive, to be united in the face of the infinite darkness between the stars. And somewhere in that darkness, other harvester fleets learned to fear the worlds where humans and their AI allies stood watch together, where the boundaries between organic and artificial life had been bridged by nothing more complicated than a daily wave hello.